You know it's better than a week that has one video in it? That's right. A week that has two videos in it. Now, I hope you weren't saying, actually, it would be a week that has no videos in it, because that's mean, hurtful. I wanted to talk a little bit about the assignment of evaluating the content of websites. I talked a little bit about cursive or waving at steamboats or going to a library and looking in a card catalog and finding a book, right? And say, well, in my day, I'd have to go to the library and find that book. I'm not in any way trying to suggest that was better. It was just different. In fact, it's very limited. All I had was that one book. And unless that author was famous or somebody had written about that author, all I knew about the author was what was written on the back cover of the book. A lot of times when all you had was the book, you treated it like gospel. You're like, I found a book. It was published. It must be real, right? And of course, there is a different, amount of analysis that you can apply. Like, well, who published the book? Is it a mass, printing? And if it's a trustworthy publisher and it was disseminated widely, then you could assume, well, it's probably true. But you're still just hoping in some senses. And that's what I feel happens a lot of times with internet sources. I found it on the internet. I'm kind of hoping it's true. And so, we have to kind of figure out how can we analyze and really understand what we're looking at, as far as the internet goes. Again, I know this is like one of those weird who care type things, but I was really shocked when I was young, and I was a paper boy. I was delivering a paper, and I was go door to door, and I would ask people, "Do you want to buy my paper?" It was the Santa Barbara News Press. It's a good rag, and I remember somebody said, "I don't want that conservative piece of crap in my house." And I thought, conservative? What does that mean, right? And it never even occurred to me that there was any political bias in newspapers, right? It's just a newspaper. You don't even think about, it having some type of implicit bias and that coming out within, how the headlines are written or the pictures that they choose. It's news, man. The news is the news. You can't do much with presenting the news in a way that would have any type of bias, conservative or liberal. And so it was shocking to me. It was one of those where I thought, man, I had no idea I was delivering a conservative piece of crap to people's doorway. So that was back in a time, back in the old days, when, again, it was a lot more subtle. There was still a bias, but it was subtle. And it was in the way that things were presented. The subtlety is falling off, and as people start to get into echo chambers and become more selective with the resources that they view for news or whatever, you don't get as much subtlety. You get much more overt with their biases. So there's this continuum, if you think about it, from very, very quiet about the biases, very implicit, all the way to, oh, I'm going to be crazy in your face with my politics, and somewhere in between, right? You have this continuum where some people, their biases is just shown and worn on their sleeves, and then others where it's very, very subtle. It's still there, though. And, if we look at it and you say, well, that's why I read, whatever, The Economist. The Economist is very, very subtle with their bias. Now, if you looked at them on a continuum, most people would say, oh, they're not biased at all. They're still biased. Of course, I think that the truth has a liberal bias. That's a joke. I'm kidding. All right. Anyway, this assignment, I want to explain it to you so that you understand it. You have to do 2 sets of analysis. There's 6 questions. What's the purpose of the site? What is the intended audience? How do we know? How do you know? You have to provide analysis on these answers. What are the main subjects discussed on the site? You're going to have to do some analysis on it. You're going to have to look around. What assumptions and biases do the authors of the publication on the site seem to have? How do we know? this is important. You're going to have to provide some substantiated evidence. You have to provide something that shows this. What research methods and sources do the authors of the material use? How does research help the writers of the site state their cases? Okay. That's the 6 prongs that you're going to have to do. Now, I provide a pool of websites, and there's 4 websites in the pool. You need to pick one of those. Now, you're going to do 2 sets though. So you're going to pick one of those, and then the second one is going to be a website that you've used as a source on one of your previous papers, or this paper or the one previous. We've only done 2. So you're going to have 2 of these. Now, I want you to keep in mind, this is a 200-point assignment. So I'm not looking for 1-sentence replies. I'm not looking for you to say, well, Wikipedia says that they're conservative, or Wikipedia says that they're liberal. Okay. So I wanted to kind of break that down. You're going to do 2 sets of analysis. It's going to be 1 out of the website pool and then 1 out of your own research. If you have not used any type of websites for research in your papers, then lucky soul, you get to do 2 out of the web pool. I know. God, I am so excited for you. If you have any questions, hit me up with an email or that office hour thing. Come to it. Have a great week if I haven't told you that already.